Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon, and we welcome you all to this panel. The specificities of the panel involves the discussion on safety and security online. By way of introduction, I'm going to be your moderator for the session, and my name is Sujoy Sarkar. I am a law student at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. Today, we have among us our esteemed guest speaker, Ms. Janice Verghese. Janice is a cyber lawyer and a cybersecurity specialist. Over the year, she's also led, designed, delivered capacity building and outreach programs for national and international audience. She's conducted more than 1,500 workshops and webinars and sensitized over 2.4 lakhs netizens. She's also trained close to 7,000 police officers on cyber safety, gender sensitization, and investigation of cyber crimes against women and children. She has various publications to her name, and the most notable among them would be the Cyber Safety Handbook for school students that was recently launched by CBSE. We welcome you to the event. Thanks for giving us your time, and over to you, Janice.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I've been listening to all the other panels which are happening, and I must say that this is one of the most exciting events that I've ever been a part of. And I'm very happy to be associated with Lookup for such events. We've done a podcast before. We've done a lot of informal conversations, and I think talking about online safety has become a very important part of our lives. These devices which kind of govern everything that we do, which have become so important with our iPads, our smart watches, our smartphones, our laptops. I think it's very important to discuss how you can keep yourselves protected in cyberspace, how you can make the most of what the internet has to offer while safeguarding your data and your identities. So I look forward to having a wonderful conversation with everybody who has joined. Do keep dropping in your questions so that we can make this as interactive as we can. And I hope this is useful to everybody who joins in.
All right. Thank you so much. And just to add on to the same, it'd be great if you all could just drop in your questions. We'll try to accommodate, if not all of them, most of them during our discussion. Anyway, so as the title of the show, the event suggests, it's Chai Pe Charcha. So let's just maybe wrap things away from the central discussions of the event and maybe take a bit of look into Janice's profile. And perhaps it'd be great to discuss some of the most breakthrough moments in your life which actually helped you in perhaps deciding and choosing cybersecurity as one of your, as the profession that you're into right now.
Right. So this whole interest into cybersecurity, it kind of peaked when I was in law school, when I was doing my graduation, and I pursued something very interesting. It's a BTech LLB. It's a 6-year course where I explored computer science, engineering, and also cyber law. And back then, it did not make sense to anybody. It still doesn't make sense to people. People hear about 4-year courses, 5-year courses. What in the world is this 6-year course? But only because it was interesting, I thought, 6 years of my life in one place in the hills. I was fortunate enough to go to one of the most beautiful states in India, which is Uttarakhand. And I was very happy being there, in the hills, in the valley, enjoying with my friends, enjoying snow, snow-capped mountains and everything. So there was one incident that, I came across. A very dear friend of mine. She was in a relationship with this very wonderful common friend of ours. And they had been in a relationship for quite some time. And they were, they were very sexually active. And I think, kudos because they were open about it. They used to talk about how their relationship is growing, how they're growing as individuals. And they used to, share photos with each other. And they were open about it because we loved having conversations about how an individual is growing as a person who's playing so many roles, as a daughter, as a sister, as a partner. So once this friend came to me and she said, Janice, you know what, I shared my pictures, and since I've been sharing my pictures, things have changed. The dynamic of the relationship has changed. And I said, okay, that's kind of weird because all of you, you've been so open and you've been doing so well, and we've been rooting for you, the two of you. how are things going out of hand? And she mentioned how the partner began being abusive towards her and was even threatening to leak her pictures. And that is when I realized, all of us are kind of taking the internet a little too much for granted. There's nothing wrong in sharing your pictures. There's nothing wrong in expressing yourself. And I think the internet has definitely been a wonderful medium through which we've been able to express ourselves. But it has also kind of, blurred that line between what should stay private and what should not. So when you are indulging in behaviors of this kind, you're definitely expressing yourself. You do kind of feel a sort of relief as well. That's something you weren't able to do before, you can do now. But at the same time, these opportunities are being misused as well. So this dear friend of mine, her pictures were there with this person she trusted with her life, somebody she had been trusting for so many years. And now, out of the blue, she's in this vulnerable situation, and her photos did end up getting posted online. And fortunately, we knew how to get the content taken down. We did pursue legal action, but again, a different story for a different time. The point still remains, all of us are still not very much aware of how the internet functions. Number one, we don't know what to do when things go wrong, and we don't even know how things can go wrong. So these are three of the most, biggest and the most prominent issues that I came across from this one incident. And slowly, when people got to know of this incident, so many other young people came out and they spoke about their experiences. Image-based abuse is just one out of so many problems that people are facing. So we will talk about misinformation, we will talk about financial frauds, we will talk about children being targeted online. So I kind of was made aware of the dark side of the internet, so to say. And that is when I realized, what, this is not just a regular graduation that I've gone for. This is something which is going to shape the future, not just India, but the future of everybody. So it's very important for me to make the most of this information and try to make others aware. And that is when I associated myself with a nonprofit based in India, based in Ranchi, and I started working with them, and I designed a lot of capacity building programs. I spoke to audiences of all ages, spoke to I think close to 2 lakh individuals, and spoke to law enforcement, understood the responsibilities of these various stakeholders, understood where their hands are tied, understood the problems they are facing. And once I gathered all this information, I engaged in meaningful conversations with stakeholders ranging from law enforcement to end users to tech giants to policy makers. And that is how this entire movement, on my personal bit began. And the rest is history. Have been working in this space for quite some time now, and I think all these conversations are very, very important. And more importantly, we have to talk about our experiences, what worked, what did not work, so that the next set of people who will be in this space, they know where not to invest time and where they should be focusing, especially because those things may work. So that is what has been the past few years in a very crisp bit.
That, thank you so much. That was actually quite a diverse and comprehensive anecdote of your past experience. Maybe just taking things up from there, you talked about the positive effects of the internet, and there's a whole wrap of consensus that we need to have people who are left out on the boundaries of the internet, and to bring them within the ecosystem to at least explain them what's safety and security in the first place. I mean, by a direct exclusion of all of these individuals, we don't even provide them the amenities in the first place to
Exactly.
understand what's the next version of safety and security. So my
Exactly.
first question to you actually concerns with perhaps a continued issue which we've been facing in most of the developing countries, but not just India. And that is with digital access. That is with the fact that how we try to incorporate these people who are just left outside. We've I've I've been fortunate to come across your work in the past and how it has solely focused on making things more exclusive. So maybe we could just dig into the type of work that you've done in the past.
Yes. So, talking about what work I've been doing, through my associations with all the other stakeholders. So, of course, capacity building has definitely been at the center of a lot of work that I do. In addition to capacity building, I've also been taking care of helplines that were set up by the organization, and I've spoken to, I think, tens of thousands of victims of different kinds of online abuse. So, the situation of my friend that I shared, I mean, I feel fortunate that I was able to help her, and from there I sort of realized that it's not just my friends who I have to help, it's every person who is a part of this ecosystem. So through proactive counseling, we have assisted, I think, close to 10,000 individuals who were facing different forms of abuse. And we've tried to get their photos taken down if it was shared non-consensually. We've tried to get money back, which was lost through financial frauds. We've tried to get accounts shut down, duplicate accounts which were created. So a lot of things are happening. So it's not just awareness which will help, because let's be honest, if you just look at India, we have a population of 1.7 billion. The entire world has a population of 7.8 billion. I mean, even if people spend their entire lives trying to train individuals and build resilience, it's not really something which is possible. It's not attainable. So it's very important to work on every single aspect of online safety. So right from sensitizing users on what is expected from them, that is one aspect that we try to deal with. The other aspects have been talking to tech giants, talking to companies about what their responsibilities are. I understand, that expecting everything from a company like, let's say, Facebook or Instagram is not fair, because they are just providing you a platform through which you're expressing yourself. And if an individual decides to express themselves in an inappropriate manner that makes others feel unsafe, I don't think that the platform should be held liable. But having said that, the platform definitely has a very important role to play. So all the learnings that we had from the capacity building initiatives, we presented all of that to the tech giants. We presented that to law enforcement. One very important aspect of reporting that we must talk about is the fact that in many situations, people who are targeted in online spaces do not feel comfortable speaking up. Now, again, drawing back to the experience my friend had, she was open with us. She felt safe with us, which is why we knew every aspect of her lives. And, we were sensible enough to not put her in a difficult position, just because we knew things. But not everybody has a support system of this kind. And many times, even family members are not supportive towards young users. So whenever there is a case of any kind of abuse, especially sexual abuse, even though it's non-contact abuse, they don't feel comfortable speaking up. So sensitizing law enforcement on how they can kind of make citizens feel more comfortable in speaking up, and most importantly, to abolish this practice of victim shaming. Just because somebody is expressing themselves, somebody feels confident to talk about their sexuality, to talk about their preferences, does not mean you shame them, does not mean you blame them for whatever is happening with them. They took a leap of faith with their families, with their friends, and we are no one to make them feel ashamed of themselves. So talking about all these aspects is what we've been doing. But again, having said that, it's not something you can accomplish in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think it's a very, very long process. It's a very tedious process. But I'm happy that it has started. And digital literacy, the fact that you were mentioning about, people not knowing, the risks. Forget about the risks. There are so many people, if I talk about India, the internet penetration rate is just 40%. So out of every 100 Indians, only 40 have internet access. And this is despite being a country where internet access is so affordable. I have friends living in other countries where they pay, I think, 300 or 400 Indian rupees for 1 GB of data. We pay that much to get 1 GB every single day for 3 months. So internet access is very affordable for us as compared to other nations, yet our citizens are unable to access because even that is not affordable for them. So talking about access is the first step to building resilience. People who do not have access need to be given access, because you talk about any sector, you talk about the organized sector, the unorganized sector, the internet is going to play a very important role in all of our lives very, very soon. It already has become an indispensable part, but it's only going to become more and more important. So talking about access is step one, giving people access. It's very important. Number two, sensitizing users on how they can make the most of it and also be aware of the risks. Just yesterday, very quickly, just want to add this one bit before we move ahead. Just yesterday, someone, was trying to log into my Flipkart account. For those who may not be aware, Flipkart is one of the biggest e-commerce websites in India. And I received a mail at 1 a.m., IST, that someone is trying to access your account and here is the OTP. So something as simple as two-factor authentication, a very simple security setting, helped keep my account protected. But a huge amount, a huge number of, huge chunk of the population is not aware of these security settings, which is why their accounts get compromised. Right? So it's very, very small things which keep you protected. So it's important to educate yourself and make digital literacy a part of your lives. It's no longer a choice, but an obligation. And that is what the need of the hour is. That is what all of us should be focusing on.
All right. Thank you so much. It's quite comprehensive again. Just picking things up, trying to link maybe the conversation on sensitization. And we do respect the fact that we want everyone to have access to the internet, but there do exist structures within the internet which are problematic by themselves. And perhaps just moving on to the point about maybe fake news, which has been on the rise very prominently, especially in the pandemic era. And with respect to that, maybe you could educate the audiences about how to place our cautious restrictions and maybe talk about the traits that we could possibly follow to educate ourselves and spot those instances of fake news. So over to you.
Right. So misinformation is definitely a very big problem. And it's not just misinformation. There are quite a few terms that can be used. We can talk about misinformation. We can talk about disinformation. We can talk about malinformation. Right. So primarily, again, there are a million more terms because people keep researching people to come up with new terms every now and then. But what I would like to first focus upon is that information primarily can either be completely false. For example, somebody came up with some let's say a home remedy for, let's say some kind of a flu, for some kind of an infection, some kind of an allergy, and then that was disproved later. So this information was true once upon a time, but is not true anymore, right? This is disinformation. There are instances where information is completely false, and because we are unaware, we end up sharing it, or information may be presented in an incorrect context. For example, there was this huge, the huge scandal in India a couple of years back where kurkure, again, for those who do not know, kurkure is a word in Hindi, and in English, it translates to crispy. Right. So basically, these are chips which are very popular in India and absolutely loved by everybody. I can very happily say that. And there was a rumor that this contains plastic. And how did people prove this? All you have to do is pick up pick up the chips and kind of set it on fire, and it melts like plastic does. So this was the first major instance of fake news going viral in the country. So everybody absolutely completely went crazy. Everybody's like, oh my God, this contains plastic. You cannot eat it anymore. It'll cause cancer. You will die, this and that. So it kind of, wreaked havoc. It kind of wreaked havoc and everybody panicked because this is something which was a staple in every, Indian household. Children kind of live off of this. So this was the first instance that I myself noticed, and I decided to research. Such a big company, the owner of the product, they are not going to be so callous with their products. They will not be so careless. So I researched, and I realized the only reason this product burns like plastic is because it contains something called starch. There's a certain kind of starch which is present in the product, which gives it the property owing to which it burns like plastic. So it does not contain plastic. It's the chemical composition because of which it's burning so. So just because you assumed something, just because you saw something, just because a family member sent you something does not mean it is true. So very quickly, 30 seconds, some quick red flags to look out for. Number one, this is a golden tip, not a red flag. Do not believe everything that you see online. The world kind of seems like a very wonderful place when you see all these offers online. You see all these deals of iPhones being sold at 90% off and MacBooks being given for free because, well, the government is in a good mood. So all these pieces of information that you see online, they're too good to be true. So number one, do not believe everything that you see online. Number two, how do you know if an offer or a scheme is shady? You have to look at the offers. Please remember, especially for electronics, especially for big brands, nobody is going to give you hefty discounts. Maximum 10% off, 20% off. And in Diwali, we just celebrated Dussehra yesterday, a major festival, and we're going to be celebrating Diwali, the festival lights, very soon in the next 1 month. So there are lots of offers going around because it's festival time. So you will see a lot of good deals, but again, those deals need to be reasonable. 90% is something which even employees of the company do not get, let alone users like you and me. So if it's an unbelievable offer, please do not, believe, don't click on it. Look at the URL. The URL, the link at the top, be it an offer that you receive, be it a website that you come across, always look at the link. The link will give you all the information that you need. For example, today, if I open the Amazon website, the URL will be a straightforward amazon.com. If I open it in India, it will be amazon.in. If it's happening in Canada, amazon.ca. So very easily, you will see that the domain name is Amazon. If you see unnecessary words being added, for example, you will see a website, amazonbestdeals.com. Although the word Amazon has been used, this is not the actual Amazon website. Somebody has created a duplicate website to trick you. Now, this may sound silly that I'm saying it out loud, but this is something that all of us fall for, unfortunately. So look at the offers, too good to be true, close them. Look at the URLs. If the URLs have extra words, unnecessary, incorrect spellings, extra numbers being added, if the domain name is incorrect, there's a problem. And number three, you also have to look out the pictures. Just because there is a picture out there, this is specifically in the context of false information, just because there is a picture in the information does not mean you have to believe it. There is a wonderful process called reverse searching. So you just like, you type things on Google and you search, there is an option to upload images onto the internet and find out the truth behind the images. So this is called reverse image search. All you have to do is go to the URL reverse.photos, reverse.photos. Simply go to reverse.photos, upload any image you come across. Google will give you all the information that it has about the image. So if at all it's an old image which has resurfaced and is being spread in an incorrect or a malicious context, at least you'll get to know what the actual story behind the image is. So images can be doctored, images, even videos, it's not just images, videos can be doctored, videos can be used in wrong context. So just because there is a visual element does not mean we should, just close our eyes and believe it. You have the tools ready at your hands, use reverse searching. You can, for videos, take a screenshot of, any frame when everything is visible clearly, reverse search the screenshot of the video. Google will tell you what the actual story behind the video is. It's that simple. So, use these processes and try for yourself, try checking in the authenticity of information yourself. And there are wonderful websites out there, specifically for the Indian audiences. There is something called Press Information Bureau. Go to their website. For international audiences, there is something called Snopes, SNOPES. Go to snopes.com, go to smhoaxslayer.com. There are wonderful websites out there who are dedicated, these teams are dedicated to busting fake news. So any kind of information goes viral, these people pick it up, they verify, and they'll tell you what is true and what is not. So look out for these websites, use these tools, and within seconds, you can bust any kind of fake news.
Right. Okay. Oh, that was, again, like, coming in from you, it was extremely comprehensive, and it did give entry points for us to consider with respect to this, the tools as well on the internet. But as this whole event is focused upon youth, and maybe there's a social responsibility that we as individuals have to partake as well, and that is to educate the people preceding us, our parents' generation. And maybe if you could just shed some light on how we could go about with this process. And there's just one more thing I wanted to add in this. If you could just take it in together, that'd be great. So There's a question from the audience which talks about your thoughts on International Fact Checking Network. And if you would like to take it in, it's completely fine. Otherwise, we can skip the question as well. All right, over to
Right.
you.
So talking about our responsibility, number one is understanding the potential of the internet. The fact that the internet, has brought all kinds of information at our fingertips. So
Right.
realizing how good and also how dangerous this can be is step one. So as caregivers, as parents, we have to speak to the young users about how virtually all kinds of information is readily available. There was this very, very popular case where this one individual, they created a bomb. And how did they do that? By searching on YouTube. Again, I love YouTube. I think it's an absolute lifesaver, but it is a harsh reality that we have to acknowledge and accept. So something, as serious as creating explosives, this information is easily available on an online, platform. So all kinds of information is easily accessible. So knowing what to look for, what to not look for is very important for us to understand. So as
Right.
parents, as guardians, as caregivers, please try to restrict the kind of access your child has. Again, this is a very big debate between being protective and violating the child's privacy. I completely understand that, having young members at home myself. But you have to use parental controls. You have to have conversations. So conversations plus technology, use both of them to have meaningful dialogue with young users and tell them how they can keep themselves protected, number one. Number two, you have to be a role model. There are lots of things that I can talk about, and because of due to the paucity of time, I can't go into the depth of responsible behavior. But just to crisp it down, you have to be role models. If you see somebody sharing something online, even if it seems ridiculous to you, we are no one to kind of dismiss their feelings. So building empathy, building respect is very, very important. You may come across people sharing their experiences. You may think it's silly, you may think it's stupid, and you absolutely have the right to express yourselves. But expressing yourselves at the cost of somebody else's emotions, somebody else's identity, somebody else's feelings, that's something which we should not be indulging in at all. So being respectful, being empathetic is very, very important. And my freedom of expression is not more important than another's freedom of expression. So knowing where to shut up, so to say, is very, very important. Enjoy the internet, enjoy social media, enjoy, yourself, express yourself. I mean, go to town, but not at the cost of anybody else. So when we talk about our responsibility as a society, as an individual, as a part of a institution, as a part of a group, we have to have meaningful conversations about digital citizenship, instilling digital citizenship in ourselves, understanding that the online spaces, that the virtual community that we're a part of is as real as this physical community that we're a part of. Our
Right.
actions have very real repercussions. So understanding this is very, very important. And I think this kind of sums up what we need to focus on to be safe and be responsible online. Talking about the question that we've received from the audience, the International Fact Checking Network, I think it's a wonderful initiative, and this is just one out of so many initiatives undertaken by individuals. So I'm very happy that these things are gaining popularity, because we have to come together, especially as young internet users, as the youth. We have to come together, talk about the repercussions of false information, of fake news going around. It's resulting in riots. It's resulting in so many manipulations. It's resulting in entire democracies being crushed. So we have to talk about the implications, and more importantly, we have to talk about what do we do about it. I think everybody's throwing light on the red flags. Everyone's talking about, oh, fake news is such a big problem, but how in the world do we deal with it? So I think this is just one of the wonderful, one of so many wonderful initiatives been undertaken. So you definitely can follow them. You can definitely follow all the other platforms as well that I talked about. Follow their social media handles, follow them on, wherever they're available, and try to keep track of what kind of information goes viral and what are some of the important red flags to look out for. Because, just like we are evolving, we are learning, criminals and all these bad actors working in online spaces, they're also evolving. They're learning of new ways to indulge in all these illegal activities and kind of trick you. So evolving as users is also very, very important. So keep learning. It's a never-ending process. As long as you have the opportunity, as long as you're in good health, keep learning, keep enhancing your skills so that nothing gets past you without you noticing it.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. Two more points, right, from your previous statements. Uh, you talked about how there is a notion of freedom that we as actors have to build upon. But what we see is that there's no cost to most of our actions. It's probably coming because of a broken state security system, and it's also coming from the fact that it's not effective. So we do have the knowledge that you've worked extensively on the aspects of cyberbullying. You've also worked on educating the state personals as well to understand and evaluate the consequences of cyberbullying. So maybe if you could just define cyberbullying in the first place and then talk
Yes.
about maybe some of the instances which you've come across, which could actually help the audience in understanding. Because I've come across a few of your works where you've talked about there's a very thin line between teasing and cyberbullying and cyber stalking. So maybe we could just take all of these things into consideration from your end. Over to
Right.
you.
Okay. So let me quick disclaimer. What I'm going to say may sound very controversial. A lot of you may not accept what I'm saying, but just hear me out. I think we've created this huge issue out of cyberbullying. I don't think it's a big deal. I'll tell you why. Again, this is something. Hear me out. Listen to the entire answer, and then you can judge. So I don't think cyberbullying is a very big deal. Let me tell you why. Because bullying happens in a situation where there is an imbalance of power, right?
Mhm.
So an imbalance of power happens where there are two people involved. One is either physically stronger or mentally stronger, or is in a position of power, by virtue of their age, by virtue of their designation or whatever. When, let's say, you and I, we're in the same age bracket, we're in the same position, both of us, are lawyers. I mean, you'll be a lawyer very soon. You're on the same path that I was. So we're pretty much in the same, we're kind of equals, right? If I am calling you names, if I'm spreading false information about you, if I am harassing you in any way, this cannot be called bullying because there is no imbalance of power. So the word bullying should only be used in situations where where there is an inherent imbalance of power, and that most commonly happens with children, older children making fun of younger children. So we should be using the word bullying very carefully. I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the laws across the world, if you look at laws, cyberbullying has not been called a crime anywhere, right? It has not been called a crime anywhere, and especially in the Indian context, it definitely isn't a crime. And I don't think cyberbullying should be called a crime. Why? Because a lot of us, we equate every bad experience or every unsafe, bad I think is not the correct word to be used here. We equate every unsafe experience we have online with bullying, and that's a mistake. Somebody is repeatedly calling you, somebody is repeatedly contacting you despite you having said no. You're being stalked. My dear friend, you're being stalked. If you call it bullying, you're trivializing the issue. So cyberbullying is absolutely unethical. It's absolutely unacceptable. But the minute you are fearful for your life, the minute you're being affected in ways that are not acceptable at all, the minute your physical health is affected, the minute your mental health is affected, do not call it bullying. It's not bullying anymore. Bullying is something that happens, among friends, that happens among school students and everything, and you can kind of ignore it. If it's something that you cannot ignore, do not trivialize it by calling it bullying. Which is why I come back to my first statement: bullying isn't a big deal. Talking about the dangerous forms that it takes. So cyber stalking, definitely any individual repeatedly contacting you, repeatedly trying to, create a relationship with you, despite you having said no, you're being stalked. Anybody is monitoring you without your consent. It's a form of surveillance, it's a form of cyber stalking. Anybody is sending you objectionable content. It may be sexually explicit, it may be not. Obscene publications, you're being harassed. It's a form of sexual harassment. Somebody is threatening you, criminal intimidation. So all these activities that are being reported across the globe, they are much bigger than bullying. So let's not trivialize let's not use a word that signifies very, very basic activities to define things which are so severe. So I hope I've been able to justify why the word bullying should not be used everywhere, right? And coming to the different forms that it takes, again, it can take so many forms, right? From image-based abuse to violation of privacy to doxing. For those who are not aware, doxing is when any of your personal information is shared publicly with the intention to harass you. So let's say someone posts your phone number on, let's say, a pornographic website. People may start calling you for favors. People may start calling you for all kinds of things, and you don't even know what happened with you. So this is a case of doxing. So anybody sharing your personal information, anyone breaks into your account, anybody is making fun of you online to the point where it is, to the point where it is ruining your reputation. It's no longer bullying. It's no longer trolling. The lines were crossed ages back, my dear friend. So let's not use the word bullying everywhere, because I think the kind of problems that are being faced are not as simple as we think they are. They're serious crimes which attract punishments. Talking about why a lot of these cases are not being resolved, a lot of these cases are not being addressed, is because unfortunately many times the victim themselves is not aware they're a victim. If somebody is sending you inappropriate content, somebody is sending you sexually explicit content, at least as per Indian laws, it's absolutely punishable. It's a non-bailable offense. But then the victim has no idea. They just think it's fate, especially as a woman, individuals who identify as women, as girls. They feel, it's just my bad luck. I was born a girl, or I am a girl, so it's just a curse that I have to live with. That's not really the case. You do not have to accept abuse as your destiny, as just your bad luck. It's happening with you. You have to speak up. And the more you speak up, the more cases will be filed, the more cases will be disposed of, and more people will be held accountable. So I do not agree with the fact that people aren't held accountable. I think people are not being held accountable because no one is calling them out. So it begins with you speaking up. Anyone makes you feel uncomfortable, leave the words, what it should be called, what laws should be used, leave that to the lawyers. There are plenty of lawyers in the world, leave it to them. You have to be responsible. You have to speak up for your own self. So speak up, talk about it, and then you will be able to, make sure people are held accountable for what they are doing. So I hope I've been able to explain why bullying should not be used casually. Again, in no way am I saying that bullying is acceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. But let's not use the word bullying everywhere and dilute the gravity of the situation where things are much more serious than bullying.
All right. Thank you so much. That's actually gone up and helped in raising consciousness, I hope, amongst the audiences as well. Just to follow up, maybe it's a twofold question. The responsibilities that we did have a conversation about, the responsibilities that we as individuals have, but there's also other stakeholders involved in the name of private organizations, the Facebooks, the Twitters, and there is the state authority as well. Maybe you could just emphasize on the fact that how how these entities in themselves could encourage people to speak up in order to promote a more healthy atmosphere within the social media platforms. All right.
Right. So very quickly, as tech giants, if I were a tech giant, or if I were speaking to, representative of the tech giant who had the power to make, whatever changes I would recommend, these are some of the things that I would focus on. Number one, your reporting mechanism has to be brilliant. Unfortunately, a lot of users, they report inappropriate content, they report inappropriate accounts, and action is seldom taken. Why? Because the community standards were not violated. We don't think this is a problem, right? And I myself have faced this situation so many times. I've been in this situation so many times where I am outraged at some of the content which is shared, but despite reporting it under the right reasons, action is not taken. Right. So I think it's very important. I understand, having worked with all these giants, I understand where their hands are tied, and the fact that they cannot, put everything explicitly in their community standards, because if that is the case, then our freedom of speech gets violated. If it's very clear, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. If that is the case, there is nothing left for us to say. What if we are being critical of somebody? We are using language which is not acceptable in general, but the context gives meaning to those words. Let's say somebody wants, simple example would be nudity per se is not allowed on any platform. But what about artists who paint, such artworks? Should you be calling them people sharing obscene content? So where do you draw the line? So because of these challenges, I understand the platform cannot have everything written explicitly in their community standards and community guidelines. But nonetheless, I think your reporting platform, your reporting mechanism should be A1. As soon as content is reported, you must respond, which they're already doing. They do respond within 24 hours. And if the end user who's reporting is unhappy, there should be an option to escalate the matter. Because not only will this satisfy the end user that despite the report request not being accepted, I do have an option of appealing it. Number one, the end user feels satisfied. Number two, the platform can also understand how content is evolving. They may say, you know what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shouldn't be allowed, but I as a user am flagging number 6 kind of content which you're not even aware of. So this will not only help keep the user happy, this will also help you as a platform develop better policies to give us a safe experience. So as a platform, I think the reporting feature should be brilliant, because otherwise the other aspects I'm pretty happy with, because I've worked with them and I think they're doing a decent job. Of course, can be improved, but reporting is the biggest problem right now. Number two, talking about law enforcement, talking about the government, you have to have better coordination. There have been so many cases, especially when the actors are sitting in other countries. Let's say somebody sitting in Canada did something to somebody sitting in India, or somebody sitting in India did something when someone sitting in America. It is an absolute nightmare getting data. It's an absolute nightmare. Like within the country itself, data requisition requests take so much of time. Many times, a law enforcement authority is pretty lax. They don't really contact the platform, as quickly as they should. This many times results in data getting deleted, accounts getting removed, and then getting evidence is it becomes impossible. So being very, very proactive, the minute you see a crime is happening, report it. And the minute you receive a complaint as a law enforcement agent, as a government authority, the minute you receive a complaint, you immediately have to start the paperwork. Right? Tardiness is not something which can be accepted, because that is how dynamically things change when we talk about cyberspace. It's not like the real world where DNA stays there forever and ever. Digital footprint can be changed within seconds. Right? So understanding the importance of being proactive is very important. And as a law enforcement officer, as a law enforcement agent, you have to be very proactive. Get in touch with tech giants immediately. Get in touch, with governments immediately, so that you can begin the process of getting evidence. So be very proactive on that, because just like technology is advancing, so are the different modi operandi being used by criminals. Right? So you have to be on that. You have to be, your skills have to be up to the mark. Your analytical skills have to be up to the mark. Your relationships should be brilliant internally and also with other nations, so that you can get data quickly and you can act on the case. So these are some of the things, some of the problems that I've been facing, during my whatever stints I've had with these stakeholders. And I think this should really help you, see change in cyberspace. Talking about, how you can encourage others to speak up, you have to start this yourself. Anybody is misbehaving, call it out. Anybody is making you feel uncomfortable, call it out. Number one. Number two, give the victim the support system that they miss. The only reason people don't speak up is because they don't have a support system. Their family might blame them, society might blame them. Oh, this is that girl, this happened with her, or she's a bad girl. Again, this may sound silly to the people who've joined us here today, but trust me, all the Indian folks who've joined will be able to relate with this. This is something that a lot of us have faced personally as well. If you kind of stray just a millimeter away from what is considered to be normal, you will be you will be tagged as the black sheep of the family. You will be tagged as somebody who's eccentric, who's weird, who's abnormal. So it's not just in India, it's happening across the globe, but much more than other places it's happening here. So give the support system that the individual lacks. You stand there with them, you assist them in filing the complaint, you help them get in touch with lawyers, you help them get in touch with law enforcement. You have to be with them every step of the way, so that they don't feel they're alone, they don't feel they're helpless. That is something that I have been doing. It has worked out. And try to learn as much as you can. Do not rely just on the police. Do not rely just on experts. You need to know what your rights are. You need to know what your reporting options are. If you're blank, anybody can say anything to you, fool you, and get their way with you. So you should be aware that no one can trick you when you are at your most vulnerable. So these are some things that people should work on, that we should work on, so that it's a better ecosystem that we create for ourselves and for future generations.
Right. Thank you so much. I think this was quite intricate in the way you put it. And the way I see it is that we need to improve on the reporting mechanisms. State needs to be more proactive, and perhaps this whole conservative outlook that exists with the reporting mechanism is also needed to be addressed. Anyways, due to the paucity of time, there were a few more things that I really wanted to talk about. Time, and there was a interactive activity session that we'd also designed for this very event, and we just try to move on to that. There's a question which will come up, and it'll be great if the audience can respond to it. So I'll share my screen, I'll put up the problem, and I'll also put up the poll. It'll be great if the audiences can reply to it. Right. So okay. All right. I'll just try to scroll it down a little. So, okay. Yeah. So here's the problem statement, the problem, I mean, the picture per se. And I'll also, okay, I cannot put the poll. Just give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. Okay.
I've launched the poll. I think, Sujoy, you can explain the picture. I've launched the first poll.
Exactly.
So we will get the answers very shortly.
Right, right. So basically, here's a picture, and the whole idea of the picture is to look at it and figure out if there's any issue with the picture per se. If you feel that there's an issue, you can say that it is, or maybe you can just answer in the negative if you do not feel there's any issue with the picture, right?
So the idea is, if you were to come across this website, would you log in? Would you not log in? That is the question. So do you think there's something suspicious about the image? Do you think there's something? This is just, so we took a screenshot of the entire web page and we kind of cut it because it was pretty big to put in this sheet. So we've kind of just, cropped the first half. And do you think there's something wrong with the image? Look at the URL, look at the logos, look at the placement. You see this problem? I mean, would you log in? Would you not log in? Are you confused? These are 3 options that you have. So let's quickly answer this and then we'll tell you what the actual story behind this is.
We'll close the poll in about 5 seconds. Is that okay? All right. Janice, could you please close it out? Right. Okay. Okay, that's Janice, over to you. Maybe you can talk about the issue with the picture.
Yes. Okay. So one of the participants asked, is the Facebook logo missing? But so then the word Facebook that's written here at the left top corner, that itself is the logo now. So the logo is there. Now I hope that the results are visible to everybody on the screen as well. So some people said, yes, there's something wrong. Some people said no. 50% said there's no problem. 33% said yes, there's a problem. 17% says, can't really say. Now the problem with this is, the website isn't actually the original Facebook page. Somebody has created a duplicate page. And how do you identify this? By looking at the URL. Now, it may look like Facebook, but it's actually not Facebook. There are mistakes in the spelling, number 1. Number 2, you should never log into any website that begins with HTTP. HTTP is a protocol. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's basically a set of rules that a website has to follow if they are receiving any information from the audience. right? So this is the actual web page, and the previous one was a screenshot of a fake page which was created. Now HTTP, as I mentioned, hypertext transfer protocol, when the S is added, it just signifies that the communication you're having with the website is secure. Meaning, when you type any kind of information onto a website which is HTTPS, it is a secure website, so no one other than you and the company can access the information that you have typed. So when you log into the HTTPS website, your usernames and your passwords can only be seen by you and the company. But let's say it's an HTTP link, like the previous image that Sujoy shared in through his laptop. That website is simply HTTP. So when you enter your username and password, because there is no kind of security, because there's no kind of encryption, other than yourself and the website, anybody can very easily break into this website's servers and steal that information. So essentially, anyone is sending you a link. If there is an HTTPS, you may click on it. If there is no HTTPS, it would be best to not click on it. And even if you do, you should definitely not enter any information. So when you're shopping online, when you're logging into websites, make sure they're HTTPS. And it's not just HTTPS that you should check, you also have to check the spellings. So Facebook may have an extra O, it may have an extra E, it may have double FACEBOOK. So look out for these spellings because they try to make it look as genuine as they can, but it's the HTTPS bit and the names in the URL which help you identify whether they're genuine or not. So this was the first poll. I think we can quickly launch the second one as well. And then we'd like to know your opinions on that as well. So let's quickly just read this one case that came up a couple of months back. This was a case that we had resolved. So let's just quickly read this once. And once everyone does it, I think in the next 1 minute, I'll be launching the poll. And then you can let us know what you feel about the case.
For the convenience of the crowd, I'll just read it up once. A class 10th girl was getting lewd phone calls and messages from some anonymous number. She was afraid to tell it to her parents because she knew her dad was hot-tempered and would try to harm the anonymous caller by tracking him down. With this fear in her mind, she didn't bother to complain. The phone calls and messages didn't stop. She started fearing that the boy can follow her too, and sooner did this happen. Wherever she went, he started following her, be it her tuition classes, be it some outing spot. The situation became worse when he started clicking her pictures. The girl was frightened and she dared to complain to the cyber crime branch.
So very quickly, there's a young girl, she studies in the 10th grade, and she begins receiving random phone calls from unknown numbers. And she receives, and the person calling her is saying all kinds of lewd things. And she's really scared. She doesn't want to speak to anybody about this because she's afraid she'll be blamed. Just an average Tuesday for people who are troubled online. So she's scared. She doesn't know how to deal with it. She's scared that she'll be blamed. Her privileges will be taken away. She won't be able to use the internet anymore. She gets really scared. She doesn't talk. And one fine day she sees randomly she notices that there's one person has been following her when she's been going to her tuition classes. Whenever she leaves her home, this random person has been following her. So she's completely scared. She doesn't know what to do, but somehow she, end of the day, gains the confidence and she goes to the cybercrime branch and she files a complaint. So the question here is, what crime do you see happening here? Is it criminal intimidation? Is it cyberbullying, or is it cyber stalking? This is a trick question precisely, which is why I tried explaining why cyberbullying should not be put in everywhere, because something which began as, just lewd calls ended up in her actually being followed in the real world. So things begin online and may take offline forms. Things may begin offline and take online form. So it can happen in any way. The idea here is that you should know what is happening with you. Again, people, belong to different countries. They come from different backgrounds. So of course, different countries may have different laws. But the idea here is to know when things are going wrong. So the fact that she was receiving lewd calls, that itself is unethical, immoral, absolutely illegal. The fact that she's being followed is a problem. The fact that she did not feel comfortable speaking up is an equally big problem, which a lot of us unfortunately don't talk about. So this is what we've been trying to address through today's talk. We've tried to present some real cases. We've tried to present some learnings that we've had over the years with all this wonderful work that we've been trying to do. And I think there are quite a few results. And so we can end the poll. Sujoy, what do you say?
Sure, we'll do that.
Right. Okay, so we've ended the poll and let's quickly share the results as well. Right. So 13% thinks it's criminal intimidation, 13% thinks it's cyberbullying, 75% people think that it's cyber stalking. So I would have to stick with this being a case of cyber stalking. We cannot use intimidation yet because nobody's trying to scare this girl per se. She's getting scared because of the situation, but nobody's explicitly indulging in scaring her. So intimidation won't really fit in here. Cyberbullying, again, this would have been bullying if it was somebody pranking her. If her classmates were pranking her, then maybe you can call it bullying because it was affecting her, but not to a point where she's scared for her life. But stalking, definitely. She's being repeatedly contacted. She's being followed. So definitely stalking and cyber stalking. So I hope that the difference between these terms is now clear to everybody. And very quickly, what we'd like to leave all of you with is do not be scared. Do not let any criminal have control over you. You have rights in offline spaces and also in online spaces. Do not think anybody has the power to control you online. Do not think anybody has the power to make you feel unsafe online. Express yourselves and try giving others the confidence to express themselves. Not everybody would be as loud as I am. Not everybody would be as an extrovert as I am. But no matter what kind of friends you have, no matter what kind of personalities you see, try helping them express themselves online. Help them do so in a safe manner. Whatever you've learned, share this information with all your friends. All of us are privileged, so we have the opportunities to learn this. We have the opportunities to gain this information. But there's a huge chunk of population who does not have this. So let's try to use our whatever privileges we have, whatever resources we have. Let's try to use these to help others make the most of the internet. Help them have safe experiences, help them speak up if someone makes them feel unsafe, and most importantly, use the features that you have on the platform. There are features available on every platform to report people. There are features on platforms to protect yourselves, your data, your identity. Use those features. They go really long way. So I think we can end this session now. So Joy, any last words from your side?
Absolutely. I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the whole organizing committee. It's absolutely been wonderful. We've got to cover so many things. We talked about fake news. We talked about cyberbullying. We discussed some of the etiquettes that an individual needs to exercise and be knowledgeable about while being on the internet. So it's really been great. We're really grateful to have you to spare us some time. We know that you already have another thing to attend very soon, very important for you. Anyway, so if there's anything that you want to conclude with, any concluding remarks, otherwise we'll call it a day. Yeah.
Just one quick thing to everybody. This does not end here. Just because we did one session on online safety does not mean all of us have become professionals or we are pros at it. We are still as vulnerable as we were, before the session. But now at least you know what red flags you have to look out for. Now at least you know what kind of features are there in place. Now at least you know how to deal with situations of online abuse. So use this information as much as you can, spread awareness and have conversations about it. I think it's high time we talk about child abuse online. We talk about image-based abuse. We talk about how the internet is facilitating abuse. I think we've clapped enough for technology and for the internet. Now it's time to talk about how this is being used against us and how you can safeguard yourselves. So I'd just like to leave all of you with this thought. Enjoy the internet, enjoy social media, enjoy being online, but do so in a responsible manner and help contribute to making cyberspace a safe space for everybody. so that no one feels scared, no one is terrified of going online, nobody is terrified at the thought of having an online profile. People feel empowered, people feel free expressing themselves. So let's work towards building such an ecosystem, and I'm sure all of us will, be able to do that in the next few years to come.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Finally, I'd just like to thank everyone who had joined in. And we have a session. Our next session is scheduled at 6 p.m. today. It's titled as Declutter and Recharge on Your Social Media. It'll definitely be another insightful session, and we'd be really grateful if you all could join in. Thank you so much. Thank you, Janice, once again.
Thank you, everybody. Happy learning in the rest of the sessions as well.